Oakland, California, 1998. It was a Tuesday morning in September when Robert Chen walked out of his two-bedroom apartment on Fruitvale Avenue, told his wife he was going to buy cigarettes, and never came back. He left behind Linda Chen, 29 years old, 7 months pregnant, and drowning in $30,000 of credit card debt that Robert had secretly accumulated. He left behind Sarah, his 5-year-old daughter, who waited by the window for 3 days asking when Daddy was coming home. Robert was 32 years old, a second-generation Chinese American, handsome, charming, the kind of man who could talk his way into any room and out of any responsibility. He had worked as a car salesman, a restaurant manager, a day trader, never staying anywhere long enough to build anything real, always moving, always running. Linda found the note 2 hours after he left. It was tucked under the coffee pot. 4 sentences written on the back of a gas station receipt. "I can't do this anymore. I'm suffocating. Don't look for me. I'm sorry." That was it. 27 years of his life, marriage, fatherhood, family, reduced to 4 sentences, on a piece of trash. Linda called his cell phone disconnected. She called his mother in San Francisco. She hadn't heard from him. She called his brother in Los Angeles. Nothing. Robert Chen had vanished. Linda tried to file a missing persons report, but the police saw the note. They told her what she already knew. He wasn't missing. He left, and there was nothing they could do about it. The first month was the hardest. Linda kept expecting him to walk through the door, to say it was all a mistake, to apologize, to come back, but he didn't. The bills kept coming. The rent was due. Sarah kept asking questions Linda couldn't answer. "Where's Daddy? He had to go away for work, sweetheart. When is he coming back?" "I don't know. Doesn't he love us anymore?" Linda held her daughter and cried into her hair, unable to find words that wouldn't break a 5-year-old's heart even more. 2 months later, Linda gave birth to a son, David. Robert never knew his second child's name, never sent a card, never called, never sent money. Linda worked 3 jobs to keep the lights on. She cleaned offices at night. She waited tables during lunch shifts. She worked weekends at a laundromat folding strangers' clothes. Sarah and David stayed with Linda's mother, a woman in her 60s who could barely take care of herself but did it anyway because family mattered. The state of California tried to find Robert. They issued warrants for unpaid child support. They sent letters to his last known addresses. They contacted his family members. But Robert had covered his tracks well. No forwarding address. No paper trail. He had become a ghost. Years passed. Sarah grew up watching her mother work herself to exhaustion. She watched other kids get picked up from school by their fathers. She went to father-daughter dances alone, standing in the corner while her friends twirled with their dads. She learned early that the world wasn't fair, that people could just leave, that love wasn't enough to make someone stay. By the time Sarah turned 10, she stopped asking about her father. She stopped wondering where he was. She stopped hoping he'd come back. But she never stopped being angry. That anger lived inside her like a pilot light, quiet, constant, waiting for fuel. Meanwhile, 300 miles away in Las Vegas, Nevada, Robert Chen was starting over. He had changed his name slightly. Robert became Rob. Chen became Cheng. On unofficial documents, he got a job, managing a small import business. He rented a studio apartment. He joined a gym. He started dating. Within 2 years, he met Karen, a dental hygienist, 34 years old, blonde, kind. She had no idea Robert had a wife and 2 children in California. He told her he'd been married once, briefly, but it didn't work out. No kids. Clean slate. They married in 2001. By 2003, they had a daughter of their own, Emma. 2 years later, a son, Michael. Robert bought a house in a quiet neighborhood in Henderson, just outside Las Vegas. 3 bedrooms, a yard, a swing set. The American dream. He coached Michael's Little League team. He took Emma to ballet recitals. He grilled burgers on Sundays and went to PTA meetings. He was, by all appearances, a devoted father. He had erased his past, buried it, moved on. And for 20 years, he got away with it. Robert Chen thought he was free. He thought the statute of limitations on his failures had expired. He thought that if you run far enough, fast enough, the past can't catch you. He was wrong. Because in 2017, Sarah Chen, now 24 years old, and fresh out of law school, typed her father's name into a database. And she found him. Everything Robert had built over 2 decades was about to come crashing down, because the little girl he abandoned had grown into a woman who knew exactly how to destroy him. And she was just getting started. Sarah Chen graduated from UC Berkeley with honors in 2015. Top of her class. She could have worked at any corporate law firm in San Francisco. Big salary, corner office. But that's not what she wanted. She wanted family law. Specifically, she wanted to specialize in cases involving deadbeat parents, unpaid child support, parental abandonment. The kind of cases most lawyers avoided because they were messy, emotional, and the clients rarely had money to pay. But Sarah didn't care about money. Not yet. She cared about justice. Her mother, Linda, was proud but worried. Sarah, you can't spend your whole life angry at your father. It's not healthy. Sarah looked at her mother, 50 years old, but looking 65. Her hands worn from decades of manual labor, her back permanently bent from years of scrubbing floors. I'm not angry, Mom. I'm focused. That was the year Sarah started asking questions, real questions, about where her father went, about whether anyone had ever actually tried to find him. She pulled court records. She found the original child support order from 1999. Robert Chen was supposed to pay $800 a month for 2 children for 18 years. He never paid a single dollar. The math was staggering. $800 a month times 12 months times 18 years. That was $172,800. And that didn't include interest. That didn't include penalties. That didn't include the emotional damage. Sarah contacted the California Department of Child Support Services. They told her the case was still technically active, but they had exhausted all leads years ago. Robert Chen had disappeared. What if I find him? Sarah asked the caseworker, the woman on the phone side. If you can locate him and provide verifiable information, we can reopen enforcement proceedings. But I'll be honest with you, honey. Most of these guys are ghosts for a reason. They're good at hiding. Sarah smiled. I'm better at finding. She hired a private investigator, a retired cop named Tom Vasquez, who specialized in tracking down people who didn't want to be found. Sarah paid him $3,000, money she had saved from her signing bonus at the law firm where she just started working. I need you to find Robert Chen, born 1966, last known address, Oakland, California, disappeared, 1998. I need to know where he is, what he's doing, and whether he has any assets. Tom took the case. It took him 4 months. In February 2018, Tom called Sarah. I found him. Sarah's heart stopped. We're Henderson, Nevada, suburb of Las Vegas. He's going by Robert Chen now. Slightly different spelling on some documents, but it's definitely him. He owns a small business, import company called Pacific Trade Solutions. Married to kids. Nice house. 3-car garage. He's doing well for himself. Sarah felt the pilot light inside her roar into a bonfire. Send me everything. Tom emailed her a full report. Photos of Robert walking out of his house. Tax records showing his income. Property records showing he owned the house outright. Bank statements Tom had obtained through creative means. Robert Chen, or Robert Cheng, as he now called himself, was worth approximately $1.2 million. He had built a comfortable life. A life funded by the money he should have been sending to his first family. Sarah sat in her small apartment in Oakland and stared at the photos. Her father, 50 years old now, graying hair, a little heavier, smiling, getting into a BMW, living the life he had stolen from her and David. She picked up the phone and called her younger brother. David was 20 years old, working as a mechanic, still living with their grandmother because he couldn't afford his own place. He had grown up without a father, without stability, without the opportunities Robert's new children had been given. David, I found him. There was a long silence on the other end. What are you going to do? Sarah's voice was cold, calm. I'm going to make him pay for everything. Over the next 3 months, Sarah built her case. She worked late nights after her regular job, compiling every piece of evidence, every missed payment, every court order Robert had ignored, every attempt by the state to locate him. She calculated the total amount owed. $172,800 in base child support. With California's 10% annual interest on unpaid support, the total was now over $287,000. But Sarah wasn't done. She researched emotional damages, psychological harm caused by parental abandonment. She found case law, precedents. She found a judge in Clark County, Nevada, who had previously ruled in favor of adult children, suing absent parents for emotional trauma. Sarah filed a separate civil suit for emotional damages. $150,000. Split between her and David. In total, she was coming after Robert Chen for $437,000. She prepared everything herself. Every document, every motion, every piece of evidence. And then, in June 2018, Sarah booked a flight to Las Vegas. She didn't tell her mother. She didn't tell David. She wanted to do this herself. She wanted to see his face when she handed him the papers. Sarah rented a car at the airport. She drove to Henderson. She found the address. A beautiful two-story house with a manicured lawn and a basketball hoop in the driveway. She sat in her car for 20 minutes, staring at the house. The house that her child support money should have helped pay for. The house where Robert's other children grew up with everything she and David never had. Then she got out of the car. She walked up the driveway, rang the doorbell. A teenage girl answered, maybe 15 years old. Pretty, blonde, like her mother. Can I help you? Sarah forced a smile. Is Robert Chen home? You mean my dad? Yeah, hold on. The girl disappeared. Sarah's heart was pounding. And then Robert appeared in the doorway. He looked older in person, tired, but comfortable. He was wearing a golf shirt and khaki shorts. He looked like a man who had no worries. He looked at Sarah with polite confusion. Can I help you? Sarah held out the envelope. Her hand was steady. Robert Chen, you've been served. The color drained from his face. What? I'm Sarah Chen, your daughter. The one you abandoned 20 years ago. This is a lawsuit for $287,000 in unpaid child support and $150,000 in emotional damages. See you in court. She turned and walked away. Behind her, she heard Robert's voice, panicked, desperate. Wait, wait. But Sarah didn't look back. She got in her car and drove away, leaving Robert standing in his driveway, holding the papers that were about to destroy his life. The war had begun. What would you do if you were in Sarah's position? Would you have confronted him, or just let the lawyers handle it? Let me know in the comments below. Robert Chen stood frozen in his driveway, staring at the legal documents in his hand. His daughter Emma appeared beside him. Dad, who was that? Robert couldn't speak. His throat had closed up. His hands were shaking. Dad, go inside, Emma. But who? Go inside. Emma flinched and ran back into the house. Robert had never yelled at her like that before. Karen came to the door. Rob, what's going on? Who was that woman? Robert looked at his wife. His second wife. The woman who thought she knew everything about him. We need to talk. That night, Robert told Karen the truth. About Linda, about Sarah and David. About the family he had abandoned in 1998. Karen sat on the couch, her face pale, her hands gripping the armrest. You have other children. I did. I do. But that was a different life. I was young. I made mistakes. Mistakes. Karen's voice was rising. You abandoned your children. You've been lying to me for 17 years. I didn't lie. I didn't tell you everything. That's the same thing, Rob. Their teenage daughter Emma was listening from the top of the stairs. Their son Michael was asleep, unaware that his father's past had just walked up to their front door and blown their family apart. How much do they want? Karen asked quietly. Robert looked at the papers. $437. Karen stood up. We don't have that kind of money. The house is paid off. The business is worth. No. Karen's voice was steel. You are not risking our home. You are not risking our children's future for a mistake you made before I even knew you. Karen, please get a lawyer. Rob, figure this out. But do not drag this family down with you. She walked upstairs. Robert heard the bedroom door slam. He sat alone in the dark living room, holding the lawsuit, his perfect life crumbling around him. The next morning, Robert hired a lawyer, Daniel Cross, a family law attorney in Las Vegas, who specialized in defending against child support claims. Cross read the documents and whistled low. This is bad. Really bad. Can they actually do this? It's been 20 years. In California, absolutely. There's no statute of limitations on child support. Once the order is issued, it's enforceable forever. And Nevada honors California family court orders. They can pursue you here. What about the emotional damages? Cross leaned back in his chair. That's trickier. It's a civil suit, separate from the child support. But if her attorney can prove that your abandonment caused measurable psychological harm, a judge might award it, especially if she's representing herself well. She's a lawyer, Robert said quietly. She just graduated. Cross raised an eyebrow. Your daughter is a lawyer. Yeah. And she's the one suing you. Yeah. Cross was silent for a moment. Then he said something Robert would never forget. Mr. Chen, I'm going to be honest with you. You're screwed. This isn't about money. This is about revenge. And revenge cases. They don't settle easy. Over the next 2 months, Sarah and Robert's legal teams exchanged discovery requests, financial records, bank statements, tax returns. Sarah's side demanded everything. Every penny Robert had earned since 1998. Every asset he owned. Every dollar he had spent on his second family, while his first family struggled. Robert's attorney tried to negotiate. My client is willing to settle for $100,000, paid over 10 years. Sarah's response was a single sentence. See you in court. Robert tried to hide assets. He transferred money to his brother in California. He put the business in Karen's name. He claimed his house was owned by a family trust. But Sarah had anticipated all of this. She filed motions to freeze his accounts. She subpoenaed his business records. She deposed his brother, his accountant, his business partners. She was relentless. Robert's marriage was falling apart. Karen barely spoke to him. His children looked at him differently. Emma had Googled her father's name and found articles about the lawsuit. She confronted him at dinner one night. So, I have a sister. Robert couldn't meet her eyes. Yes. And a brother. Yes. How old are they? Your sister is 24. Your brother is 20. Emma stared at him. You left them. It's complicated. Emma, no, it's not. You left them. And now she's coming after you. Emma stood up from the table. Good. I hope she wins. She walked out. Robert looked at Karen. She said nothing, just stared at her plate. Michael, their 12-year-old son, looked confused. Dad, what's happening? Robert couldn't answer. His business started suffering. Word had gotten out about the lawsuit. Clients were pulling contracts. His reputation was being destroyed. He tried to reach out to Sarah. He called the law firm where she worked. Left messages. Sent emails. Sarah, please, can we just talk? We can work this out. She never responded. Robert even tried to contact Linda, his ex-wife. After 20 years of silence, he called her number. She answered. Linda, it's me. It's Robert. There was a long pause. Then Linda's voice, cold and tired. What do you want? I need you to call off Sarah. This lawsuit is destroying my life. Linda laughed. A harsh, bitter sound. Good. Now you know how it feels. Linda, please, I'm sorry. I know I messed up. But this is too much. Too much. Linda's voice was shaking now. You left us with nothing. I worked 3 jobs for 15 years. Sarah wore hand-me-downs until she was 18. David had to drop out of college because we couldn't afford it. And you were in Las Vegas, living in a mansion. It's not a mansion. I don't care what it is. You made your choices, Robert. Now live with them. She hung up. Robert sat in his car in the parking lot of his lawyer's office and felt something he hadn't felt in 20 years. Fear not. The vague anxiety of being caught. Real bone-deep fear. Sarah wasn't going to stop. She wasn't going to settle. She was going to take everything. And the worst part, Robert knew he deserved it. 3 weeks before the trial date, Robert tried one last thing. He showed up at Sarah's apartment in Oakland. He knocked on the door. She opened it, saw him, and immediately tried to close it. Sarah, wait, please. I have nothing to say to you. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. She stared at him. The man who had walked out when she was 5 years old. The man who had missed her entire childhood. Her graduation, her law school acceptance. Everything fine. 5 minutes. She let him in. Didn't offer him a seat. Robert stood awkwardly in the doorway of her small studio apartment. It was neat, organized. Law books stacked on a desk. A photo of Linda and David on the wall. No photos of Robert. Sarah, I know I messed up. You didn't mess up. You abandoned us. I was young. I was scared. I didn't know how to be a father. So you just left. I'm sorry. Sarah crossed her arms. You're not sorry. You're scared. There's a difference. I've thought about you every day for 20 years. Liar. Robert flinched. Sarah, if you thought about me every day, you would have called. You would have sent money. You would have done something. But you didn't. You built a new family and pretended we didn't exist. I can't undo the past. No, but you can pay for it. Robert looked at her. Really looked at her. She had his eyes. His stubborn jaw. His intensity. What do you want from me, Sarah? What will make this right? Sarah stepped closer. Her voice was quiet but deadly. Nothing will make this right, but $437,000 is a start. Robert left her apartment knowing there would be no settlement, no mercy, no forgiveness. The trial was set for October 15, 2018, and Sarah Chen was going to destroy him. Thank you so much for sticking with this story. I know it's heavy. I know it's brutal. But trust me, the courtroom confrontation is going to be devastating. Stay with me. Clark County Family Court, Las Vegas, Nevada. October 15, 2018. The courtroom was smaller than Sarah had imagined. No dramatic oak paneling like in the movies. Just beige walls, fluorescent lights, and rows of wooden benches. But it didn't matter. This wasn't about the setting. This was about the judgment. Sarah arrived 30 minutes early, dressed in a charcoal gray suit she'd bought specifically for this day. Professional. Serious. She carried a leather briefcase containing every piece of evidence she'd compiled over the past year. Robert arrived 10 minutes before the hearing was scheduled to start. He looked terrible. He'd lost weight, dark circles under his eyes. His suit was wrinkled. His attorney, Daniel Cross, walked beside him, whispering last-minute instructions. They sat on opposite sides of the courtroom, Sarah alone at her table, Robert with his lawyer. Their eyes met once. Robert looked away first. Judge Patricia Moreno entered. She was in her late 50s, Latina, with a reputation for being fair but unforgiving when it came to parental responsibility. All rise. Everyone stood. Be seated. We're here today for two related matters. First, enforcement of a 1999 California child support order against Robert Chen. Second, a civil suit for emotional damages filed by Sarah Chen and David Chen. Ms. Chen, you're representing yourself. Sarah stood. Yes, Your Honor. And you're also representing your brother, David. Yes, Your Honor. He's unable to be here today due to work obligations. But I'm acting on his behalf, with his written consent. Judge Moreno nodded. Proceed with your case. Sarah took a breath. This was it. Your Honor, in September 1998, my father, Robert Chen, abandoned his family. He left behind my mother, who was 7 months pregnant, myself at 5 years old, and $30,000 in debt. He disappeared without a trace. For 20 years, he paid $0 in court-ordered child support. Meanwhile, he moved to Nevada, started a new family, built a successful business, and accumulated significant assets. The state of California issued a child support order in 1999 for $800 per month. She placed a document on the judge's desk. This is the original support order. This is documentation from the California Department of Child Support Services showing zero compliance. These are financial records showing Mr. Chen's income and assets during the period he was supposed to be paying support. Judge Moreno reviewed the documents. Her expression grew stern. Mr. Cross, does your client dispute these facts? Daniel Cross stood. Your Honor, my client acknowledges that he made mistakes in his past. However, he was never properly served with the original support order. He was unaware of his legal obligations. Sarah interrupted. Your Honor, that's demonstrably false. Judge Moreno held up her hand. Ms. Chen, you'll have your turn. Mr. Cross, continue. Additionally, Your Honor, my client's current financial situation does not support a judgment of this magnitude. He has a wife and 2 minor children who depend on him. Enforcing this order would cause undue hardship on his current family. Sarah couldn't help herself. You mean the family he chose to support while abandoning mine? Ms. Chen. Judge Moreno's voice was sharp. You will control yourself in my courtroom. I apologize, Your Honor. Judge Moreno looked at Cross. Counselor, ignorance of a court order is not a defense, especially when the defendant actively evaded service. Do you have any evidence that Mr. Chen attempted to fulfill his parental obligations during the past 20 years? Cross hesitated. No, Your Honor. Any evidence that he attempted to contact his children? No, Your Honor. Any evidence that he experienced genuine hardship that prevented him from paying support? Your Honor, my client was starting over, building a new life, with money that should have been supporting his existing children. I've heard enough on that issue. Ms. Chen, let's move to your civil claim for emotional damages. Sarah stood again. Her voice was steady, but inside, her heart was racing. Your Honor, parental abandonment causes documented psychological harm. I'd like to present testimony about the impact my father's abandonment had on my life and my brother's life. Proceed. Sarah pulled out a folder. Inside were letters, report cards, therapy records, photos. This is a letter I wrote to my father when I was 7 years old. My teacher helped me mail it to his last known address. It came back, returned to sender. I kept it. She read from the letter, her voice wavering slightly. Dear Daddy, I miss you. Are you coming back? Did I do something wrong? I promise I'll be good. Love, Sarah. The courtroom was silent. Sarah continued. This is a report card from 3rd grade. My teacher wrote a note. Sarah is struggling with focus and emotional regulation. Recommend counseling. My mother couldn't afford counseling. She was working 3 jobs. She placed another document on the bench. These are therapy records from when I was 16. I was diagnosed with depression and abandonment anxiety. I attempted suicide when I was 17. Robert's face went white. Sarah looked directly at him. I spent my entire childhood wondering what I did wrong. Why wasn't I enough to make you stay? Judge Moreno spoke gently. Ms. Chen, I understand this is difficult. Do you have expert testimony? Yes, Your Honor. Sarah called Dr. Alina Martinez, a psychologist who specialized in childhood trauma. Dr. Martinez had evaluated both Sarah and David and prepared a report. Dr. Martinez testified for 20 minutes. She explained the long-term effects of parental abandonment, the statistics, the research, the specific harm Sarah and David had experienced. In my professional opinion, both Sarah and David Chen experienced significant psychological trauma as a direct result of their father's abandonment. Sarah's suicide attempt, her difficulty with relationships, her perfectionism and need for control, all classic symptoms. David's struggles with trust, his difficulty maintaining employment, his anxiety, also consistent with abandonment trauma. Cross tried to cross-examine Dr. Martinez. Isn't it possible that these issues would have developed regardless of Mr. Chen's absence? Anything is possible. But the timing, severity, and specific nature of their symptoms are consistent with abandonment trauma, not general life stressors, and you believe financial compensation will heal this trauma. Dr. Martinez looked at him coolly. No, but it acknowledges the harm done. It provides resources for ongoing treatment, and it holds the person responsible accountable. Judge Moreno thanked Dr. Martinez and dismissed her. Mr. Cross, does your client wish to testify? Cross looked at Robert. Robert shook his head. No, Your Honor. Does your client have anything to say before I rule? Robert stood slowly. His lawyer tried to stop him, but Robert waved him off. Your Honor, His voice cracked. I was a coward. I was scared. I didn't know how to be a father, so I ran. I told myself I was doing the right thing, that they'd be better off without me. But I was lying. I was lying to myself. I was selfish. He turned to Sarah. Sarah, I know saying sorry doesn't fix anything. I know it doesn't erase 20 years, but I am sorry. I'm so sorry. Sarah stared at him. Her face was stone. I don't forgive you. Robert looked like he'd been slapped. Judge Moreno spoke. Mr. Chen, your apology, while perhaps sincere, does not absolve you of your legal responsibilities or the harm you caused. I'm ready to rule. Judge Patricia Moreno looked down at the documents before her. Then she looked at Robert Chen, then at Sarah Chen. This is one of the more clear-cut cases I've handled in my 23 years on the bench. Mr. Chen, you had a legal obligation to support your children. You chose to ignore that obligation. You chose to build a new life while your first children suffered. Robert stared at the table. The law is clear. Child support orders do not expire. They accumulate. With interest, Ms. Chen has provided documentation showing that you owe $287,000 in back child support. I'm ordering you to pay that full amount. Cross started to object. Judge Moreno held up her hand. I'm not finished. As for the civil claim for emotional damages, I find that Ms. Chen and Mr. David Chen have sufficiently demonstrated that your abandonment caused measurable psychological harm. I'm awarding $150,000 in damages, split evenly between Sarah and David Chen. She looked directly at Robert. That's a total judgment of $437,000. Your assets are to be frozen immediately. You have 30 days to submit a payment plan to the court. If you fail to comply, I will authorize wage garnishment, property liens, and seizure of assets, including your business and home. Robert's face crumbled. Your Honor, please. Additionally, Mr. Chen, I want you to understand something. You didn't just abandon your financial responsibilities. You abandoned your children. You chose to be a father to some children, but not others. That makes you not just a deadbeat parent, but a selfish one. The fact that you lived comfortably while your daughter attempted suicide, that you owned a home while your son couldn't afford college. That's not just illegal. It's morally reprehensible. The judge's voice softened slightly. I hope that the financial burden I am placing on you today will serve as a reminder of the emotional burden you placed on your children for 20 years. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down. Sarah sat at her table, not moving. She had won. She had actually won. Robert sat across the courtroom, his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking. Karen, who had been sitting in the back of the courtroom, walked out without saying a word to her husband. Daniel Cross packed up his briefcase. I'm sorry, Robert. We'll file an appeal, but honestly, I don't think it'll succeed. Start gathering your financial documents. We need to figure out how you're going to pay this. Robert didn't respond. Sarah finally stood. She walked toward the exit. As she passed Robert's table, He looked up. Sarah. She stopped. Didn't turn around. I know it doesn't matter. But I really am sorry. Sarah turned slowly. Looked at the man who had left her when she was 5 years old. The man who had missed her entire childhood. The man who had caused so much pain. You're right. It doesn't matter. She walked out. In the hallway, Sarah pulled out her phone. She called her mother. Mom. We won. All of it. Linda Chen, now 50 years old, started crying. Oh, Sarah. Oh my God. He has to pay everything. $437,000. Plus interest if he's late. I can't believe it. After all these years. Justice is slow, Mom. But it's real. Sarah called her brother next. David answered on the first ring. How'd it go? We destroyed him. David was quiet for a moment. Good. Good. You're getting $75,000. You can go back to school now. David's voice broke. Sarah, I'll send you the details tonight. I love you. I love you too. Sarah sat on a bench outside the courthouse. The Las Vegas sun was bright and hot. She felt empty, not happy, not sad, just empty. She had spent a year building this case, a year pursuing her father, a year seeking revenge, and now it was over. Over the next 6 months, Robert Chen's life fell apart completely. He sold his house to pay the first installment of the judgment. He, Karen, and the kids moved into a small apartment in a less expensive part of Las Vegas. Karen filed for divorce. She couldn't forgive the lies. Couldn't forgive that he had other children he'd never told her about. Couldn't forgive that their financial security was gone because of his past. Robert's business, Pacific Trade Solutions, was placed under a court-ordered lien. Half of all profits went directly to paying Sarah and David. The business struggled. Clients left. Eventually, Robert had to sell it. He took a job as a warehouse manager. $45,000 a year. Most of it garnished to pay the judgment. His relationship with his second set of children was destroyed. Emma refused to speak to him. Michael was confused and angry. They ended up living primarily with Karen after the divorce. Meanwhile, Sarah used her portion of the money to pay off her student loans and help her mother retire. Linda Chen, for the first time in 20 years, didn't have to work. David went back to community college. He was studying to be an electrical engineer. Sarah continued her career in family law. She took on more cases involving deadbeat parents. She became known as someone who didn't settle, someone who fought. In 2020, 2 years after the judgment, Sarah received a letter in the mail. It was from Robert. She almost threw it away. But curiosity got the better of her. Inside was a single piece of paper, handwritten. Sarah, I know you don't want to hear from me. I know nothing I say will ever make up for what I did. But I need you to know something. Losing everything, my house, my business, my second family, it hurt. It hurt more than I can describe. But it was also the first time in my life that I felt the weight of what I did to you and David. For 20 years, I pretended you didn't exist. I told myself I was starting over, that I deserved a second chance. But I never paid for my first mistake. I never faced what I did. The judgment forced me to face it. Every payment I make, I think about the childhood you didn't have. The father you deserved but didn't get. The years I stole from you. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm not asking you to let me back into your life. I know that door is closed. I just wanted you to know that you were right. About everything. And I'm sorry it took losing everything to finally understand what I took from you. I hope you have a good life. Sarah, you earned it. Sarah read the letter 3 times, then she folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. She never responded. Some wounds don't heal with apologies. Some debts can't be paid with money. But at least now, Robert Chen understood what he had done. At least now, he was paying the price. And for Sarah, that was enough. Today, Robert Chen lives in a modest 1-bedroom apartment in North Las Vegas. He works as a logistics coordinator, making $52,000 a year. He'll be paying off the judgment until 2031, 13 years total. He's 60 years old now, working a job he hates, living alone. His relationship with Emma and Michael is slowly rebuilding. They see him once a month. It's awkward, strained, but it's something. His relationship with Sarah and David, non-existent. Sarah made it clear she has no interest in a relationship with him. David feels the same way. The money was never about reconciliation. It was about justice. Sarah Chen is now 29 years old. She's a senior associate at a family law firm in San Francisco, specializing in high-conflict custody and support cases. She's known for being tough, strategic, and relentless. She still carries the scars of abandonment. She's in therapy, working through trust issues and attachment problems. But she's building a good life. David Chen is 25. He graduated with a degree in electrical engineering and now works for a tech company in San Jose. He used his settlement money to buy a small condo. He's engaged. He's happy. Linda Chen is retired. She lives in a comfortable apartment in Oakland that Sarah helped her buy for the first time in her life. She's not exhausted. She volunteers at a women's shelter, helping single mothers who are struggling the way she once did. The Chen family, the first Chen family, is healing. Slowly, but healing. And Robert is living with the consequences of the choice he made on that Tuesday morning in 1998, when he walked out to buy cigarettes and never came back. Justice was served. Not perfectly, not completely, but served nonetheless. Because Sarah Chen proved something important that day in court. The past doesn't disappear just because you run from it. Eventually, it catches up, and when it does, you pay. One way or another, you pay. Final thoughts. 20 years. That's how long Robert Chen thought he had escaped. 20 years of building a new life, a new family, a new identity. 20 years of pretending his first family didn't exist. But time doesn't erase debt. It compounds it. Sarah Chen didn't just sue her father for money. She sued him for accountability, for acknowledgement, for the childhood he stole, for the father she never had. Did it heal her? No. Therapy does that. Time does that. Building healthy relationships does that. But it gave her something else. Power, control, the ability to say, you don't get to walk away from this. You don't get to pretend we never existed. You owe us, and you're going to pay. Some people might say Sarah went too far. That $437,000 was excessive. That destroying a man's second family to punish him for abandoning his first was cruel. But Sarah would tell you, he destroyed her first. He destroyed her childhood, her sense of safety, her ability to trust. And he did it without a second thought. The money, that was just making things even. So tell me, do you think Sarah was justified? Do you think Robert got what he deserved? Or did she go too far? What would you have done if you were in her position? And if you've ever been abandoned by a parent, or if you know someone who has, how did it affect them? How did they heal? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If this story moved you, if it made you think, if it made you feel something, please subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. Every week, I bring you real stories of family drama, betrayal, revenge, and the complicated pursuit of justice. These aren't just stories. These are lives. Real people, real pain, real consequences. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And remember, the choices you make today will follow you. Make sure you can live with them. The next video is already waiting for you. See you there.